Bit Blog.
Oh, hello. Welcome to episode 40 of the Frogbit Blog podcast. This week we've got Ed Sheeran making a welcome return, and I've got all my usual features and all that other kind of hippie eco nonsense that we all know and love. Enjoy!
The Frogbit Blog. Frogbit Blog. The Frogbit Blog.
Right, corrections and apologies. I've not done this for a while because I haven't insulted many people recently, excluding Stephen Hawking. And I've nothing to apologise for, but I did insult some hens last week, apparently. And the British Hens Welfare Trust has written in complaining that I referred to some hens I got from them as the Trump supporters of the bird world. Though, to be fair, I did sing
Chickens are clever, are really, really clever.
and not.
Chickens are racist, are really, really racist. Chickens are racist, are really, really racist.
And anyway, why would chickens be racist? I wasn't implying they were racist. I was just sort of questioning their intellectual capabilities compared to other birds, like crows, who are really, really smart. And I didn't think chickens were, based on my own experience. And I was wrong. Okay, I admit it. I was wrong. Because
Chickens are clever, are really, really clever.
And also, I've had the Trappist One tourist board emailing in. If you remember last episode, I was talking about these new exoplanets that are found only 23 light years away from Earth. And they've got their own website, they've got their own Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I think that's conclusive proof, if it was ever needed, evidence indeed, I think you'll agree, that alien life does exist elsewhere. Anyway, this is how I actually portrayed them speaking.
Bloody hell, we put you on this planet as an experiment, and we just got home to Trappist One, had a cup of tea and a quick sandwich. Came back to see how you were getting on.
And anyway, this was the complaint.
Dear Mr. Frogbit, we were dismayed that in your recent episode you played the part of a Trappist visitor to Earth using a Birmingham accent. We resent this portrayal. Not that we've anything against the residents of Birmingham, you understand, but we are from Trappist One, not an episode of the now defunct Crossroads soap opera, which, annoyingly, we are just receiving the first episodes of here through radio waves sent out in the 70s. And, oh yeah, if that's the best you humans can do, no wonder you're going to make yourselves extinct.
Which is fair enough, but they do sound a bit like Stephen Hawking, don't they? So what else has been happening? Well, I read this headline the other day in one of these sciencey, naturey things. Moths caught drinking tears from the eyes of sleeping birds. I mean, how poetic. It sounds like a prog rock album or something, doesn't it? It's very poetic. I've got nothing to add to that, really. Isn't that wonderful? Moths caught drinking tears from the eyes of sleeping birds.
The Frogbit Blog.
And there's been lots of protests recently, hasn't there, in the past couple of weeks about climate change all over the world, which is great news. Obviously, we've got the Extinction Rebellion here, which is spreading. But there's also been a lot of school kids, and this is the one that stood out for me. This was the headline: Australian students skip school for mass protest. Skip? Is that all right? Skippy? Anyway. Thousands of Australian school students have urged greater action on climate change in protests across the country. The students skipped school on Friday to highlight what they say are inadequate climate policies by the Australian government. Though, to be fair, the government then came out with the following message. We think it's great that our school system is producing independent thinkers who want to be grown up to be both civically and globally responsible citizens. We salute you with your positive message to help concentrate our minds towards the elimination of fossil fuels and a government-led reduction in carbon emissions, which we will make a better world in which you will be able to grow up in. And... I picked up the wrong script there. What they actually said was, what we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools. Why do you have to have schools twice there in the sentence, you fucking moron? What we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools. The best thing you learn about going to a protest is how to join the dole queue, because that's what future your life will look like. Really, is that the best response that the government can come up with towards a group of kids protesting against climate change? Really? Remember, a few episodes back, I called it "The World is Run by Twats." Is there a finer example of twattishness than a response like that to young children demanding an actual future where they will actually be able to live and not destroy the world? Australia government, twats. And while we're on the subject of people protesting about climate, there's an Extinction Rebellion event in London on Friday the 21st. It's a Reclaim the BBC event to demand that the BBC give climate change more of a news priority. Because, I mean, the dying Earth should be newsworthy, shouldn't it? Shouldn't it? Or do we give equal airtime to climate denialists like Nigel Lawson? So if you're in London or not far from London and you can make it on Friday the 21st, Reclaim the BBC event, obviously go to the Extinction Rebellion website or Facebook page and there'll be more information on meeting times and that sort of thing on there.
The Frog Bit Blog.
Mate. All right, mate. Wish the van would bloody hurry up. I'm freezing. Wonder what job we got today. Oh, anyway, here's the van. All right, boys. All right, boss. What we got today, boss? Slag. Who you calling a slag, you slag? Don't call me a slag or I'll have you. Fucking slag!
Boys, calm down, boys!
Okay, sorry, we's burying some slag in the ocean. You been up to your tricks again, boss? What do you mean? You know what I mean, boss. You said we gotta bury a slag. I hope you're not making jokes about calling women slags. Well, I sort of was, boss. Look, you muppet, don't you ever let me hear you calling women slags again. That could be your daughter or sister. Know what I mean? Boss, you a feminist? Look, I don't like to assign labels to myself. Let's just say I enjoy reading the works of Simone de Beauvoir. In fact, so that you get good understanding of a feminist perspective, I'm gonna make you read the works of Germaine Greer all the way to Japan. Japan, boss? We're gonna bury a slag in Japan? Not a slag, you slag. We're gonna bury slag. It's good for the environment.
Yeah, that was a bit of a long-winded way of introducing this, wasn't it? Yeah, deforestation is a bigger cause of climate change than all the world's cars and trucks combined. Some of the damage is done underwater, where entire forests of kelp and seaweed are vanishing. One fix may come from a Japanese company in an industry better known for its carbon dioxide emissions than for environmentalists. Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corp say it's found a way to use some of its waste to stop underwater erosion and as a fertiliser that rejuvenates dying seaweed. With the permission of local fishermen, Nippon Steel in 2004 launched a small test off the coast of Hokkaido, seeding the seabed with bales of slag and fermented wood pulp. Within a year, kelp staged a spectacular recovery, growing 220 times more than in a nearby untreated area. A larger study started in 2014 is also showing results, though somewhat less dramatic. So there you go, slag is helping kelp. And remember, in an infinite number of universes, there is a Beatles song that's written about this very subject, and it's called Kelp is better with slag, kelp, it's my bag, kelp, 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 ooh, or something like that. So here's a headline I read the other day. Monroeville man dies in apparent accident while hunting. Authorities said they found a hunter dead on Sunday after his family reported him missing. Deputies searched the woods and found Wensing's body at the bottom of a tree about 30 feet beneath a hunter's tree stand, which appears to have collapsed. According to a report, Wensing had a visible injury to his head. His humour and kindness will be missed by all who knew him, his obituary states. Humour and kindness. What sort of person that kills defenceless animals? Oh, he was so kind and caring. He was always out in his spare time shooting bear cubs while they slept. And he laughed as he did it. Such a kind man with such a great sense of humour. I think that's all I'm going to say on that one. Apart from...
Oh, good, I hope it hurt, ha, 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 ha. Oh, good, I hope it hurt a lot. Hey! Oh, good, I hope it hurt, ha, 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 ha. Oh, good, I hope it hurt a lot. Hey!
Oh yeah, it's Len again. It's sexy Len again. Oh yeah, it's Len again.
Okay, it's Len time. It's that time of the week where I meet up with Len and we have a chat. Hi Len, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I feel like I should be kind of moving in at this stage. I feel like I'm here so often.
I know.
Thank you for having me.
People are going to start talking about us, you know.
Let them talk.
Yes. How's the biking going?
It's all right, yeah. It got a bit frosty the other day. I've actually got a little notification that goes off my fancy Apple Watch that tells me if it's below 3 degrees in the morning, and that usually makes the decision a bit more. It usually puts the decision on my watch rather than me.
Good, because it's funny you should say that, because remember last episode I was being all smug about my spiky winter tyres. Well, I've not put them on yet, and at some point last week, on Monday in fact, it must have dropped below freezing in the night, but it was like 2 or 3 when I went to work. And there's this bit of road just before I get on the cycle path, there's a bit of road where I have to do a sharp left but onto a hill, so I'm hitting it at an angle on my tyres, and just as I hit it I thought, oh no, it's icy, and yes, I came off and hurt my hand, which is still a bit sore. So I'm going to put the tyres on this weekend, I've decided, because you can never tell, can you?
Well, you're hardy, you won't let that put you off.
No, I'm not letting it put me off. So what we're going to talk about today, Len?
All sorts of different things. There's some research that's been bouncing back to each other, isn't it? On our new Trello board, which is a nice bit of tech we'll probably talk about at some point. China's got some wild ideas, haven't they? So.
Yes, the China plans to have a national grid in about 2020 on power, but by 2050 they're hoping for it to become a world grid, a mega project. It wants to build a $50 trillion global wind and solar power grid by 2050, which would encompass all the world. So presumably the windy bits up north would tap into it, and the sunny bits around the equator would sort of tap into it. Yeah, it envisages a global power connectivity, not only global power connectivity, but global power generation.
Certainly ambitious.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I know I remember reading an article saying China leading the way. There was a big conference about China, how base load was so passé, because we have this big fixation in the West of base load. Oh, we've got to have this base load power. We've got to have these nuclear power plants and coal factories producing base load. And basically they're saying that basically. They're saying that's an outdated concept in a way, and power will be a lot more localized and a lot nimble. And I read somewhere the other day about somewhere in America where people were feeding in on a very local level, because of battery storage that could feed into the grid, and if other people needed it, they could take out, and it was a much more fluid, localized way.
When I was thinking about it, I was just thinking of what would be the political implications of this. I mean, imagine if all power is being produced by China, and then it just kind of gets taken away from other countries producing their own power. Maybe that's a very positive thing. It could break down a lot of boundaries.
But it could cause World War III.
Utopian, dystopian again, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because it will require, and ultimately this is the way we're going, and I know people are getting very anti-globalisation, and there's that whole green thing has always been think global, act local, and in a way that's got to go. But there's going to be huge problems because America's not going to like it, are they?
No, certainly not.
And you know, as it's going, you know, America isn't a world leader anymore. They're trying to go back to coal, and at least China, for all its problems, is forward thinking. But America's not. This would require, for something like this, would require world leaders to act in a mature and sensible and an outward fashion.
And they haven't really talked about in the article of how they're going to get hold of that $50 trillion in the first place. Is it going to take investment from other countries investing in it for cheap power potentially? The possibilities are endless, really. But we've also got, I mean, a lot of tech is now by 2050 hopefully will be requiring less energy to power it as well. I mean, we're going to have obviously electrical cars becoming more efficient.
Yes.
Hopefully, sort of AI-based vehicles transporting goods around will hopefully be a thing. Again, very efficient there as well.
Yeah.
And obviously laptops, phones, augmented reality. Who knows what's going to affect all that?
Well, it'd be interesting whether we do actually end up producing less products and actually move more to a service economy that might not require as much. And, you know, we've got things like battery storage, which is still in its infancy in a way, isn't it? I know Tesla's doing interesting things. But it will require the world leaders to behave sort of like grown-ups. And I was listening to a really interesting Russell Brand podcast. I've been listening to quite a lot of his. He's got a website on russellbrand.com, and he does podcasts called Under the Skin, and he's got some really interesting people on. And there was one the other week, Dr. Gabor Mate, who is he's like studies addictions and and personality disorders, and basically damaged leaders in an addicted world. The podcast called, and he sort of dissects Donald Trump and Margaret Thatcher and other leaders, and just says basically how messed up they are. Basically how they're messed up because of the childhood, and they're projecting that in a world stage. And it's quite obvious with Donald Trump, isn't it? You look at him and he's just never grown out of childhood in a big way. But
is this something that's present in all leaders, or are they saying that, or is it just more of like the Thatchers?
I don't know. I think it's something about the need to lead. I mean, I think you do have some. You know, you've got like the Jacinda, what's her name, woman in New Zealand who actually seems like a well balanced person, and you've got Alexandria Cortez in America, and it seems like a new generation of women actually seem quite reasonable and balanced. But I remember about a podcast about 5 or 6 ago. I called it "The World is Run by Twats," and it does seem so, doesn't it, to an extent? Yeah. So unless we can start maybe getting more women in power, they seem to have a better handle on it. But then again, you look at people like Mrs. May and Margaret Thatcher, and
hopefully we're moving in the right direction. That's all we can say, isn't it?
Yes.
One step at a time.
One step at a time, sweet Jesus. Right. Well, let's cover a short one because we're running out of time here. Bricks made out of wheat. It was
a really nice way to finish on this one, isn't it? Really.
Yes.
It was an article he sent me. I wasn't eating at the time, thankfully, so that was a good thing.
Liquid gold. Students make world's first brick out of human urine.
Yeah.
Taking the piss somewhat. Yeah.
There's quite a lot of potential in this one, though, isn't there? Really.
Well, because there's a lot of piss going around.
Yeah, but there's also, it's a really inefficient way that we're currently making bricks. It's quite damaging the environment, the production of CO2 and everything like that. Those kilns that are firing at 1,400 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Massive amounts of carbon dioxide there. Whereas this is actually a relatively natural process, introducing a few chemicals that then sort of harden the pre-existing chemicals within the wee.
Well, interestingly, bricks and wee have always had a history because brickies.
Where this is going.
Well, no, brickies. Apparently, this is what I learned off a brickie that came round. He didn't do it in front of me, but when they're mixing cement, they piss in it. It's meant to be a fixer or something. Okay. The chemicals in the wee. That's what they would. That's what they generally would do. They would wee into the mortar mix.
Every time I'm leaning against the wall now, I'll be thinking about
the wee on the wall.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. Well, I think that's going to have to be it because we've rambled on again, and it goes really quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, thank you for coming in, and I'm going to get you back in just one more before Christmas.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Before those jingle bells start ringing.
All right. Well, lovely to speak to you again.
And you.
Thank you.
Oh, sexy man. Oh, man. Yeah, man. Great man.
From Big Blog.
Now, Ed Sheeran's been in the news again, and if you remember, if you've been listening for a while back, he was having trouble because he wanted to build a meditation chapel in the grounds of his new mansion that he bought in Suffolk, but his plans were held up because of great crested newts. And because of this, I got him on the show. Well, I think it was him. The bloke in the pub that sold me his phone number for 20 quid guaranteed that it was. And why would I not believe this? Anyway, Ed came on and sang this about the newts.
So feck off newts, get off my land. So feck off newts. Feck off newts. Feck off newts. Get off my land, get off my land.
And then he was back on a week later because he did a disco remix of it and it went global, and that went a bit like this.
Feck off newts. Feck off newts. Feck off newts. Feck off newts. Feck off newts.
And then he was on a bit later as he'd helped this French fella swim in the Pacific Ocean to highlight the Pacific garbage patch. And there's been some news about him recently. I'll just say this news. A French-American plastic pollution campaigner has given up his attempt to swim across the Pacific Ocean after a storm broke the mainsail of his support ship, organisers have said. Ben Lecomte had completed about 2,700 kilometres of the 9,200 kilometre journey. The trip was to take him through 1,600 kilometres of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in an attempt to raise awareness of plastic pollution. Anyway, back to the story. Ben, because it was in the Pacific, Ben needed a shark repellent bracelet while swimming. So you guessed it. He got his old mate Ed Sheeran to help him, and he wrote the music for the shark repellent bracelet, and it went like this.
So feck off sharks. Feck off sharks. Feck off sharks. Feck off sharks. Feck off sharks.
You can see a bit of a pattern emerging here, can't you? And anyway, because of the publicity of being on my show, Ed had a massive hit with the disco remix. Because, well, to be honest, his career was flagging a bit by then, wasn't it? But he said any time I wanted to call him, I could. So I'm going to call him in it. And just in case you forgot, he speaks with an Irish accent now because he had that Galway Girl song that worked for him really well. And so he's kept with it, and it's much more cooler than his boring Suffolk one. So I'm going to ring him up now because he's been in the papers again. Oh, it's ringing. I think he's going to pick up.
Hello, Ed Sheeran here. Top of the morning to you.
Hey Ed, it's me, Frogbit. How you doing, mate?
Oh, Frogbit, you sacky fecker. How are you doing, me little tinker?
Fine, Ed. Still doing the Irish thing, I see.
Well, to be sure, me Feck Off Newts remix went global, so I'm stuck with it, you know. And now, all over the world, they think I'm Irish. People don't want to hear a boring Suffolk when you've got the Emerald Isle accent, to be sure.
Anyway, you've been in the news, Ed, did you know?
I'm always into feckin' news, you cheeky fecker.
Well, yeah, but not in the things that I read. But your name popped up when I was reading The Guardian.
Oh, they don't like me in that paper. They think I'm a bit of a twat, to be honest.
Well, that's why I read it, to be honest.
Oi, you sacky fecker.
Anyway, this is what they said. A new study by researchers at the University of Sheffield sought to discover how people use music to help them get to sleep. Of 651 respondents, 62% reported listening to music to drop off, claiming they believe that it simulated sleep and allowed them to shut out external distractions. It also revealed a diverse range of choices, with respondents citing 545 artists from 14 genres, with Sheeran one of the most often referenced.
You're frickin' kidding me.
No, I'm not. And it goes on to say, whether Sheeran might seek to exploit this is yet to be seen, although considering Galway Girl was a blatant attempt to tap into the global Irish bar market, we should perhaps brace ourselves for his cover of Bar Bar Black Sheep.
The cheeky feckers. Anyway, I might do the Bar Bar Black Sheep song. I'm sure I could come up with something original. Give us a second. Oh, here goes.
Oh, here we go. So get your feckin' sleep with your Bar Bar Black feckin' sheep. Feckin' sheep.
Ed, I don't think that's going to send people off to sleep. It's a bit loud and sweary.
Oh, I suppose you're right. What do you feckin' suggest then?
Any of your big hits, they all have the same somniferous effect.
You're one sacky fecker, you are.
Thanks, Ed. Love you too.
Look, I've got to go. Oh, for a bit. Oh, I think I've got another song idea. It's called Wah Wah White Sheep. Genius, totally original. Have a quick listen. I'll do it on the spot. Have a listen.
I'll sing you a gentle lullaby. And someday you can go to sleep, boy. So go to gentle sleep. Wah, wah, white sheep. Oh, I can't help you now, I better do it. Feck, 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 feck off white sheep. Feck, 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 feck off white sheep. Get to fucking sleep, you fecker. Go on, fucking get to sleep. Oh, I think I've lost it. Oh, I've completely lost it. Feck off, go on, feck off.
Yeah, that's amazing, Ed. Well, I look forward to hearing it. Everywhere I effing go, probably.
Oh, you cheeky fecker.
Okay, that's enough, Ed. I'm going now. Bye then, Ed.
Boy now.
He is a card, that Ed Sheeran, isn't he? I saw a picture the other day from Canada, and it was of the mayor of somewhere or other. I should have wrote down where it was, because anyway, it was the mayor of somewhere or other, and he was buying his first legal marijuana. And there he was smiling at the camera, and you know, it was all very normal. And it made me think about social acceptability of these things. Has it suddenly just changed in Canada now that marijuana is illegal, or has it been happening gradually? Anyway, I wondered about what would happen in the UK if it suddenly became legal. Would there be a sudden social acceptability for, would people on soap suddenly start talking about it and doing it openly in the shows? Because after all, people in the, in things like EastEnders, people in the show drinking in the pubs, and it'd have the same status, wouldn't it?
Do you fancy going down the old Vic for a spliff, my son?
And it got me thinking.
Welcome to my Christmas address 2018. Well, it's been a busy year, what with all these royal weddings and stuff. So here we are at Sandringham, and me and Phil are quite tired, so we thought we'd chillax a bit. Harry and Meghan have just popped in, and they bought us a new bong and some Northern Lights ganja as a gift. So we thought, fuck it, we'd have a go. And quite honestly, my fellow subjects, servants, peasants, we giggled our tits off. It was quite a pleasant evening, and even we spent time with Big Ears and Horseface. Sorry, Charles and Camilla. Anyway, I've just had another toke, and I can't be arsed talking anymore. So have a great Christmas.
Or even this.
Will you all stop shouting and giggling? I know they've just opened up the new House of Parliament subsidised reefer room right next to the subsidised bar. It was one thing you all coming in and voting all pissed up, but now you're stoned off your faces and well, actually, things are quite a little more cooperative now and a little better, to be honest. I love you, Mrs. May.
So, will it happen like that? And while we're on the subject of where the UK might be heading, I read this article and it says, older Americans are flocking to marijuana. Oils, tinctures and salves, and sometimes old-fashioned buds are increasingly common in seniors' homes. Doctors warn that the popularity has outstripped scientific evidence. And who gives a toss about scientific evidence if you're an old person giggling your tits off, yeah? After all, laughter's the best medicine, huh? It goes on to say, Harry Horn, female Harry, broke her toes a decade ago, and after surgery, I have plates and pins and screws in my feet, and they get achy at times, she said. So Ms. Horn, 66, applies a salve containing cannabinoid derived from cannabis or marijuana. It eases the pain. I bet it does. It goes on to say, the salve didn't help when she developed bursitis in her shoulder, but a tincture of cannabidiol mixed with THC, the psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, provided relief. Using a pipe, she also smokes, inverted commas, a few hits, close inverted commas, of cannabis brand called Blue Dream after dinner. Because, in inverted commas, I think relaxing is healthy for you. Many of her neighbours in Laguna Woods, California, a community of mostly older adults where she serves on the city council, have developed similar routines. People in their 80s and 90s, even retired Air Force colonels, are finding such relief with cannabis, said Miss Horn. Almost everyone I know is using it in one form or another, including her husband, Hal, 68, a retired insurance broker, who says it helps him sleep. I bet it does. Ha! You old stoner, you. Maybe we should rename that generation from Silver Surfers to Silver Stoners. Hi, we're the Silver Stoners. So there you go.
Is it okay to talk about drugs? Is it okay? Don't do it anyway. Is it okay to talk about drugs? Is it okay?
Rich people doing good eco things. Rich people doing good eco things. It's not
Now, we've had some generously rich characters in this part of the show, but this one beats the lot. Wyoming billionaire pledges to protect 30% of the planet by 2030. Born in Bern, Switzerland, the 83-year-old entrepreneur and businessman first made his fortune in Belgian steel industry before establishing the US division of Synthesis, a multinational medical device manufacturer best known for producing internal screws and plates using to help bones. Now Wiss, an avid outdoorsman resident in the quaint mountain town of Wilson, is set to help mend the planet's most fractured natural areas with the establishment of the Wiss Campaign for Nature, a special project of the Wiss Foundation that aims to conserve and protect 30% of the planet's lands and oceans by 2030. This is double the amount of the planet's surface that's currently protected. Bolstered by a $1 billion investment, the campaign's to reach this ambitious benchmark by creating and expanding protected areas, establishing more ambitious international conservation targets, investing in science and inspiring conservation action around the world. This will be helped with major conservation players, including the National Geographic Society, and well as the Nature Conservancy and a host of local project partners. Through his foundation, Wiss has also, amongst other things, supported anti-poaching efforts, river restoration projects, African National Park improvement and Rails to Trails initiatives. Already, the campaign has identified 9 locally led conservation projects spread across 13 countries, 10 million acres of land and 17,000 square kilometres of ocean in total that will receive $48 million in assistance. As time goes on, additional funds will be granted for additional projects. What a great example of
rich people doing good eco things. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at. And you can't help it if you're a posh rich twat.
Now, I've not done these for a while, but I do like the theme tune that the King's College Traditionals did for me. I remember a while back where they were overdosing while microdosing. So it's a good excuse for the theme tune anyway. So here's another in the series of...
In the deepest secrets of our souls, my mind unravels like a toilet roll. In the deepest secrets of our souls.
I don't know if this is recent news, but I read it recently, and this is what it says. The most comprehensive assessment of the energy output in the nearby universe, because there's some near bits apparently and some far away bits, reveals that today's produced energy is only about half of what it was 2 billion years ago. A team of international scientists used several of the world's most powerful telescopes to study the energy of the universe and conclude that the universe is slowly dying. Great news, but doesn't that imply, though, that if it's dying, then it must now be living? And modern science generally believes that the universe is a materialist place, that the universe is just a load of old matter, basically, whereas panpsychism believes in a conscious, living universe. Well, for it to be dying, surely it also must be alive. Ooh, and that's panpsychism, and that's controversial, but really I just wanted to play the theme tune again. Okay, so here it is.
My mind unravels like a toilet roll. In the deepest secrets of our soul.
flowers. They're talking to me saying, we are your friends.
Trumpet blow. The trumpet blow.
Right, that's all I've got time for. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you once again to Len for coming on. Thank you for listening. Stay active and stay happy, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Trumpet blow. The trumpet blow. Trumpet blow. The trumpet blow.